Imagine a historical text, right? So influential, so foundational that it's still taught today. You see it in schools. It inspires TV shows, even comic books.
Yeah, it's everywhere.
But what if, and this is the really interesting part, what if this account, which seems so objective, was actually like a brilliant piece of ancient propaganda designed purely to save its author's career and, rewrite history?
It's a fascinating angle, isn't it?
Welcome to the deep dive. We dig through the sources, find the key insights, and bring them straight to you. Today, we're jumping into Julius Caesar's Commentari de Bello Gallico, the commentaries on the Gallic War.
A classic.
Exactly. But it's not just some dusty old book. It's Caesar's own account of these huge wars, packed with stories, cultural details, and, frankly, some claims that make you go, wait, really?
Yeah. Some pretty wild stuff in there.
So our mission today is to really unpack this text. We'll look at why he wrote it in the first place, the amazing stories about the people and cultures he met, and then we'll get critical about the history.
Right, looking at how scholars today see it less as pure history and more as maybe a masterclass in ancient political spin.
Exactly. By the end, you'll have a much richer sense of this book's legacy and how it literally shaped Rome's destiny and Caesar's.
And for this, we're drawing on a really solid scholarly overview, covering the whole thing, the content, the motives, the modern impact, the debates about truthfulness.
Perfect. It's amazing how something accepted as fact for so long is now seen so differently.
It really is. It shows how narrative control worked even back then. It wasn't just about recording events. It was about shaping perception. A key lesson, really.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. What are the commentaries, like on the surface?
Well, fundamentally, it's Caesar's own story of the Gallic Wars. But crucially, he writes it in the third person.
Oh, right. As if he's just an observer.
Kind of, yeah. It gives it this air of objectivity. It covers about 9 years, roughly 58 down to 49 BC, detailing all the campaigns, the battles, the politics against the Celts and Germanic tribes in Gaul.
And Gaul itself, you mentioned it wasn't just a place name.
Not entirely straightforward, no. For Romans, Gaul meant the Celtic areas beyond their province of Gallia Narbonensis, so most of modern France, Belgium, bits of Germany, Switzerland.
Okay.
But it also had this cultural baggage. Romans often used Gaul to mean, uncouth, unsophisticated, less civilized than Rome, basically.
So that framing helps Caesar from the start.
Definitely sets up a dynamic.
And the book itself is structured. Eat books, right? With that super famous opening line.
Gallia est omnis divisa in partes tres. Gaul is a whole divided into 3 parts. Instantly recognizable.
Yeah. 7 books by Caesar, but the 8th was added later.
By Aulus Hirtius. Yeah, after Caesar was assassinated, Hirtius sort of finishes the story.
But the big question remains, why did Caesar, this busy general and politician, write this massive thing? What was the real driver?
Well, that's where Roman politics comes crashing in. See, Caesar's huge successes in Gaul. They were actually making his enemies nervous back home.
The Optimates in the Senate.
Exactly. They saw him getting too powerful, too popular. They were plotting, spreading rumors, planning to prosecute him for abusing his authority as soon as his command ended and he came back to Rome.
And prosecution could mean
ruin. Losing his wealth, his citizenship, maybe even having all his laws overturned, everything he'd worked for.
Wow. So the commentaries weren't just a war diary. They were a defense, a political weapon.
Precisely. A preemptive struck.
Yeah.
It was his way of talking directly to the Roman people, the plebeians, going right over the Senate's head.
Smart.
He was basically saying, look at what I've achieved for Rome. For you.
Yeah.
It was propaganda designed to build public support and make him untouchable.
And you really can't overstate the impact this had, can you?
No, it was monumental. The wealth he gained from Gaul, the legendary reputation he built through these stories.
Yeah.
That was absolutely key later on.
There's a civil war.
Yeah. It helped him win the Civil War, become dictator. I mean, it fundamentally changed Rome, paved the way for the empire. So, yeah, much more than just a war story. It's a political masterstroke.
Okay, so we understand the why. Now let's dive into what the wars themselves, the people, the cultures Caesar describes. It was a long conflict, 58 to 50 BC. Give us the highlights.
Sure. It kicked off with the Helvetii trying to migrate in 58 BC. That was Caesar's initial justification. But it quickly snowballed into this massive campaign to conquer all of Gaul.
And it wasn't all smooth sailing for him.
Oh, definitely not. He talks about being nearly defeated by the Nervae tribe in 57 BC, a really tough fight. But then he follows up with big wins, like a major naval victory against the Veneti the next year.
And he pushed the boundaries, literally, expeditions across the Rhine into Germany and even across the Channel to Britain.
Yes, those were huge deals in 55 BC. Crossing the Rhine, landing in Britain, these were firsts for a Roman general.
More PR than conquest initially.
Probably a big part of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially the first British trip, which was pretty limited. It was about building his image back home. He did go back later with a bigger force.
But the Gauls eventually united against him.
They did. Under Vercingetorix in 52 BC. That was the major revolt. The Gauls even won a significant battle in Gergovia.
But it ended at Alesia.
Yes, the famous siege of Alesia. Caesar's engineering, the Roman discipline, it crushed the revolt. After that, Gaul was mostly pacified by 50 BC, though it took decades longer to fully integrate it.
Within this whole epic, Caesar really zooms in on certain individuals who stands out.
Two main figures, really, representing different sides. First, there's Diviciacus, leader of the Haedui.
An ally.
Portrayed that way, yes.
Yeah.
Caesar describes him as someone he had absolute confidence in. Diviciacus supposedly pleaded with Caesar, which helped Rome's alliances. He's the good Gaul, legitimizing Caesar's presence.
Okay. And the other has to be Vercingetorix.
Absolutely. The leader of the Arverni, the great unifier of the Gallic resistance. His story is, well, it's quite powerful.
His father was killed for trying to become king, wasn't he?
Yeah, and Vercingetorix himself, after Alesia, he surrendered personally to Caesar, supposedly to save his people. Caesar kept him prisoner for years, then had him executed during his triumph parade in Rome.
Grim. But now he's seen differently.
Totally. In France today, he's a national hero, a symbol of patriotism, of resistance against impossible odds. A really interesting contrast to Caesar's portrayal.
Caesar also gives us these fascinating, though clearly filtered insights into the cultures he encountered. The Germans and the Druids get quite a bit of attention. What does he say about the Germanic tribes?
He paints them as quite primitive, hunter-gatherers living on meat and milk, worshiping nature gods. He mentions some odd customs too, bathing naked together, valuing sexual abstinence for men.
Why focus on that?
Well, he emphasizes their warring nature, constantly fighting, driving out neighbors. He describes their legal system, where robbery outside their borders was actually encouraged for young men, something Caesar calls nearly offensive to Roman ways.
So he's setting them up as the barbarian threat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It helps justify his campaigns as defensive, protecting Rome from these wild outsiders. It really cemented that barbaric German stereotype in the Roman mind.
And the Druids, they seem more complex in his telling.
They are. He acknowledges their huge importance in Gallic society, their high status, their learning. He mentions they studied astronomy, philosophy, theology. Quite advanced.
But there's a catch.
Oh, yeah. He heavily emphasizes their religious practices, particularly sacrifice, human sacrifice. He describes these huge wicker figures filled with people being burned alive to appease the gods.
Yikes. How accurate is that likely to be?
Well, it's a key source, but scholars are skeptical. He might have relied on hearsay, maybe from earlier writers like Posidonius, and the account might be anachronistic, maybe not quite reflecting the reality of his time.
Why portray them as both civilized and barbaric?
It's clever, isn't it? If they're sophisticated, conquering them brings value to Rome. If they're barbaric sacrificers, they need Roman civilization to uplift them. Either way, conquest is justified.
He's covering all his bases. We also get these amazing little stories like anecdotes of Roman soldiers, Varenus and Pullo.
Ah, yes. Book 5. Two centurions, rivals, who end up showing incredible bravery during a siege. They charge into the enemy, save each other's lives repeatedly. It's very dramatic.
Pure propaganda gold.
Pretty much. A perfect story to boost morale after some setbacks, showing Roman courage and unity, contrasting it maybe with Gallic disunity. He knew how to tell a story.
Even his description of things like hostage exchanges seems carefully managed.
Right, it was standard Roman practice taking sons of chiefs as guarantees. Caesar often took them, didn't give many back. He presents it as normal diplomacy, but doesn't mention, what happened if the agreements were broken.
Convenient omission.
Very. It paints Roman actions in a better light. Plus, there was a long-term goal, exposing these young elites to Roman ways, hoping they'd become pro-Roman later.
It all points back to this idea of careful construction, of spin. But how accurate is it? For ages, people just accepted it, right?
For centuries, yeah. Historians like Nipperdey in the 1840s, Julian in the early 1900s, they basically treated Caesar's word as gospel, infallible.
When did that start to change?
Really took off after World War II. Historians started looking much more critically at some of the, outlandish claims, as they put it.
Like what kind of claims raised red flags?
Well, numbers are a big one. Take his census of the Helvetii. He gives these incredibly precise figures: 263,000 Helvetii, 105,000 allies, and exactly, perfectly, 1/4 of them, 92,000, were fighting men.
That does sound a bit too neat.
Right. And he claims this census was written down in Greek on tablets,
Oh.
which they were somehow carrying while migrating. Historian David Hinnage just picks this apart: the difficulty, the unlikelihood of Greek, the logistics, that perfect ratio. It seems highly improbable.
Manufactured, basically.
It looks that way.
And
then there are the battle numbers.
Oh, yeah, the Eusebites and Tensori.
That one's famous. Caesar claims he faced 430,000 Gauls. 430,000.
Which is huge.
Astronomical for the time. And he claims the Romans suffered not a single death in defeating them, and that the Gauls then committed mass suicide. Modern scholars like Ferdinand Lott just say, impossible.
Could it be a typo, like a transcription error?
Some have suggested that, yeah. Like maybe it was meant to be 43,000, which is still massive, but slightly less unbelievable than 430,000.
Yeah.
But even 43,000 with 0 Roman losses still stretches credulity.
It's fascinating that even someone who served with Caesar, Gaius Asinius Pollio, apparently doubted the account's truthfulness later on.
That's a key point. Pollio noted it lacked care for truth, though he kind of excused it, blaming Caesar's officers or saying maybe Caesar meant to rewrite it. But skepticism was there, even then.
So the conclusion modern scholars reach.
Hinnage sums it up well. Caesar was one of history's earliest and most durably successful spin doctors. His calm, matter-of-fact style made even wild claims seem plausible.
And the goal was always justification.
Primarily, justify the aggression as defensive, paint the Gauls as barbaric threats, portray the Romans as favored by the gods, winning against insane odds with minimal cost. As Ruth Brundle says, it was fundamentally propaganda to shore up his political position back in Rome.
Which brings us to how it was written. Did Caesar actually sit down and write all this himself?
Probably not penning every word himself, no. The consensus is he likely dictated most of it to scribes. He clearly had the overwhelming hand in shaping it, but dictation probably helped achieve that famous clarity and crisp grammar.
And Book 8 wasn't him at all.
Right, that was Hirtius wrapping things up. But the core books consistently paint Caesar in this specific light: efficient, decisive, the war presented as unavoidable, necessary, total narrative control.
Yet, despite the propaganda angle, people also see it as great literature now.
Yeah, starting around the 1970s, critics began appreciating it beyond just history or spin. They saw literary merit, comparing its structure and narrative power to epic poetry, like Homer.
It's skillfully written, no doubt.
Absolutely. Even with the agenda, the prose is elegant, the storytelling compelling. It tells you something about Caesar's abilities beyond the battlefield.
And its influence today is undeniable, still used in schools.
Definitely. It's often the very first real Latin text students encounter because the Latin is so clear and polished. Plus, it's valued for the geographical and cultural details, even if we read them critically now.
And in pop culture, it just keeps popping up.
It really does. Asterix and Obelix is the classic example. Goscinny put in jokes specifically referencing the commentaries, like Caesar always speaking about himself in the third person.
The year is 50 BC. Gaul is entirely occupied by the Romans. Well, not entirely.
Exactly. That whole setup is a direct riff on the commentaries.
And the TV show Rome used Vorenus and Pullo.
Yep. Took those 2 centurions from that anecdote in Book 5 and made them main characters. Shows how those little stories still grab people. Even composers have used it. Vincent d'Indy naming his symphony the Bello Gallico during World War I.
It's amazing how this one ancient work keeps echoing.
It really is. These texts aren't just static artifacts. They evolve with our understanding. They keep inspiring, informing, entertaining, resonating across centuries.
So wrapping this up, what we've explored today isn't just a history book. Caesar's Commentaries are this incredible mix of first-hand reporting, yes, but also sharp political strategy, fascinating ethnography, and just masterful public relations.
A complex beast.
And understanding this deep dive really gives you, the listener, insight into how history gets made, how it gets written, that interplay between war, politics, and who controls the story.
Yeah, it underlines why you always need to engage critically with sources, even the famous ones. How a story is told is often just as important as the story itself.
It's a powerful lesson. Every narrative has an author and agenda shaping what we think we know. So, as we think about Caesar's brilliant spin, maybe a final thought for you to chew on, what narratives are you consuming today? in the news, documentaries, social media, could they be just as carefully crafted, serving some agenda, whether you realize it or not? How can we use what we learned about Caesar's ancient propaganda to be smarter about the information hitting us right now?
That's a great question to end on. Food for thought.